There we go. Sorry, I just moved this so it's at a better angle. Let me see. Okay, so I'll just remember where to keep my hands. So I cut a block of clay that was about 7 centimeters thick, really just from the bag of clay, and that it came out from when I was cutting it out of the bag. It was 18 centimeters long and 9 centimeters deep, so 18 by 9, and then the thickness of, so it's actually that, so the thickness that I cut then was 7 centimeters. So 18 centimeters long by 9 centimeters wide by 7 centimeters thick, thickness. Then I took my drawing of the torso and laid it over the clay. Now this is when I started in the class. So I laid it over the clay, lined it up as best I could with the clay, and then took the needle tool So I took the needle tool, and then I just pin pricked important points like the hip, there where the tail joins on, there where that hip bone comes down, and then you can prick the marks around it, around your drawing. But don't just do the outline. It is good to put a few wee marks or scratches in just to kind of remind you of where those sections are. So pin prick around that. Then take the drawing off, and then you can start trimming with the knife. Just, trimming off where you'd said wee dots in around there, just trimming off so that your lump of clay is closer to the shape you've drawn on your paper. So, but by tapping the clay into place, we try and round. So when you first cut it off the block and do your pin pricks and cut out, all your edges are going to be quite square. So you want to start tapping in to round those edges and create zones for the hindquarters and the shoulders. So another important drawing to add on is, if you look at the horse's torso from above, you can see how the shoulders come out at an angle. So the chest is fairly narrow there, but they come out at an angle. So it's good to remember that, so that you don't end up doing your shoulders in a straight line and your hindquarters in a straight line. There's an angle there. So from above, you can, at this stage, you can start shaping that angle a bit more. Sometimes the easiest way is just to shave a bit off here and there, and shave a bit off for the hindquarters. But do notice that the hindquarters are wider than the shoulders. So if you were to run a line down from the shoulders, your hindquarters are going to extend past that. But at this stage, you can just trim off 2 angles at the front for the shoulders and 2 angles at the back for the hindquarters, and then start to get a wee bit of shaping in to define the shoulders, the centre of the body, and the hindquarters. So we did that, and so it's just a matter, you can do it with the heel of your hand, and tap that into shape until it starts to come into the shape. And you need to remember to keep that area of the withers, keep the area of the withers narrow. So that would be this area that rises up here. Keep it quite narrow, but then the shoulders come out after that. And then we need to get that, we need to just press in. Now we're just doing this roughly at this stage, just to start to get the rough shape of the torso starting to come in. So when we got it roughly to that stage, we turned it over and put a slice into its belly. So we don't want to come any further in than about a thumb in. So with your knife, measure on the outside, like roughly a thumb, and then I would put my finger as a guide, so that I go in, that finger guide stops me going too far, and then slice down the body, and then open it up, and then put your finger in and cupping with your outside hand. So cupping with your outside hand, I'm using my thumb to press against that just to open up the body cavity. And you work from the spine down in rows. So if I was working on the inside here, I would be press the inside. On the inside, what I'm doing is press, 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 press in a row. And then I'll come down one and I'll do press, press, press in that row, and then come down one and do press, 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 and one, until you've worked your way down. And while you're doing that, keep your hand cupped so that you get a feeling of roundness for the ribs, and then the ribs come in, so that the widest part of your ribs is about here. Once you have that done, you've opened up the rib cage, you've got a nice full feeling to the ribs. Then at that stage, we'll just open up the hindquarter a wee bit. Then at that stage, we get a wee bit of bubble wrap. And the bubble wrap is much better than newspaper or paper, because it doesn't get all damp and go mushy, and it's just so much easier to pull out. But you still have that, so as your clay's drying and shrinking, it's not going to crack around it. So we'll just get that in. So, sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. Pushed it all in, and then I just with the scissors. I'm just going to trim off that excess. So then once you have it stuffed, it should feel like it has a bit more resistance. So when you're pushing into it, it'll be able to hold its own shape a bit more. So once you have the body stuffed, and you try to make sure that your underside of the horse is coming round the clay, that it doesn't just end in a straight end. You want it to feel like it's curved round. So then at this point, we'll get a straight edge, and just make sure we've got the spine in straight, and just put a wee straight edge in. And that'll help us with our symmetry. So I'm going to work on the body first and try and get the two sides symmetrical. So what do we see? Should have brought the kit up that I have sent you home. But you basically just need. I'm going to use this tool for speed. I quite like these wee metal tools for sculpting. So I have one like that, and where's the other one? And my other one must be in the studio downstairs. So I have a studio upstairs and one downstairs out one of the sheds. So I must have the other two. But I'm going to actually just use this one here. So it's just a wee kidney. But for those that I give the toolkit to, any tool with a straight edge is going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to start shaving that off until I get a nice curve that I'm happy with. And so I want that to be. So the rib cage that I'm working on at the minute, they're narrow where they tuck in under the shoulders, and then they'll come out to a point that would be behind the saddle, and then they'll start to come in again. So I'm just trimming that clay off. So I'll show you this side from this view, and then when I go to do the other side, I'll show it from the side view so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just taking a wee bit of clay away and just stroking it into shape. So I'll just turn this sideways a wee minute. So what I want to do you remember I talked about like 5 centimeters down? And then going down to the rib cage. So don't cut that away, but just simply push that after the 5 centimeters, push it back, because that's where the skin kind of attaches to the hindquarters. But we want to see, and that's exaggerated just to start us off, but your 5 centimeters will be here, but there's tummy that hangs down beyond that. And then this area here for the ribs, I need to make sure that's well tucked around as well. And this area is almost like, if you think about it being a waist, you know, there's only short ribs here. So the short ribs end there too. So we'll just put a wee so underneath the haunches there, I'll just put a wee in there. So just want a wee line in there, a wee dip if you like, before then the fullness of the ribs come out here. And they come to the highest point here, and then they'll start going in again towards the shoulders. And then, do you remember in the drawing when we got the hip line and we got that triangle in? This is a curved line. So I'll just smooth that away. So then we'll just turn it around, do the same on the other side. So I started from, it is nearly easier doing it from above, but I started by sweeping up and then taking off excess bits. And I'm sweeping up and shaping it at the same time, so I know the widest part wants to be here. Just take that. And then I'll go sideways. Once I have the most of the clay off, I'll go sideways and just so then I'll look at it from above and just get the two sides the same. And I'll put my two hands side by side to check they're level, so that the shoulders are level. You know, where I have the kind of waist before the shoulders. I'm checking that's in the same place. And then I want the same curve, so going out to the widest part of the ribs and then coming in to the waist before the hips. So you see, I have to double check this waist is symmetrical, and then I have to check that this waist is symmetrical, so that the two hip bones are in the same place. So, and then I'll just do the roughly about 500 down to start pushing that in. Do a curved line. So you would take exaggerate there, but soften that a minute. And from here, let's go around as well. So from the, once you have the, that'll need to go up, we'll cut that up a wee bit. Once you have the centre of the horse, centre of the torso done, then we'll move on to the hind quarters. Now you'll already have cut off the the angle there for the hips, so that you have the highest point. And this ideally is going to go down in a fairly straight line to the withers. Then I'm just going to cut a wee bit off this. So then looking at it from above, now these are so exaggerated, but don't worry, we'll get them under control. So looking at it from above, then we know those hind quarters need to come in at an angle, so we'll just take that off. And then if you're being fussy, you can sort of measure from the centre line out to that hip. About 3. Then you can see that you need to take a wee bit off there. So we've got that angle in going up to the hips. Then we can stroke around that and just soften that, the hip bone in. But I'm remember in our drawing we did the like arrowhead. I'm remembering where the bone is, if you like, and I'm stroking round that hip bone towards the hindquarters, and then just soften that in. So. Because this is, remember we talked about the C shape here, I'm just going to take that wee bit out there. I know I have too much clay there. Because the hip bone here is it's fairly wide. This is quite a big muscle here too, but that was just there's too much clay on there. So we're stroking around that hip bone, blending that into the back. And remembering that it comes into the point where the tail comes out. So I'll just blend that in a wee bit. And then I've been demonstrating and teaching so much that I feel like all my tools are not in the right place. I can't find anything because it's all been taken out with me to so many different places. But anyway. So we've got we've the straight line, and we drew the muscle on our drawing there to that hind quarter, and then we put a straight line in, and we drew the muscle on here. So what I want to do is try and press in those areas there. And the area beyond this muscle here, well, actually I can just take that off with the knife, a wee bit of this. So that you still have this area of muscle, but there's another muscle beyond it. So I'm just getting the angle of bombing a wee bit more. And then I'll come to the rear view, and now I know where that point of the hip is there. I can just push in and create a separation between the legs. So I'm just pushing that in. Just remember to keep that wee waist in there. So that'll start us off with that, and I'll just repeat on the other side. So make sure those hips are equal. Just going to take some of this away. I'm just pressing as much as I press this one into the top of the leg. I'll do the same with the other. I'm going to see, sure I've got a centre line there. And then I'll just do a tiny wee bit of work just to create the feeling of that inside muscle. Not that this is important because your tail's probably going to cover a lot of this, but I just like to make sure they're fairly symmetrical. Okay. So then we've moved on to the shoulders. So remember when we looked at the shoulders, how they narrow towards the front of the chest? So when I look at mine, it's actually a wee bit, I want to maybe push this out slightly. So I'm just going to just make sure that's open again at the front. Taking a wee notch out. Just so I get my finger in. And hold on a second. So then I'm just going to push that out a wee bit. Now I don't want to push that out to this is the withers. I want to keep this nice and narrow here, but I want to push a wee bit to create a wee bit of a shoulder blade there. That muscle over the shoulder. And then thinking about that, like the muscle, the shoulder blade going in this direction, this arrowhead having a longer face here and a shorter angle here. So when we create this shorter side of the triangle, I'm just going to press back this area here, and that can form the chest. But we'll get that arrowhead in. And then create like a C there. So we can just pop in our straight lines, that one being a longer line, and this one being a shorter one. So it's important you keep, this is quite a big muscle here. So I'm just soften that down a wee bit. Or it can actually lay on a wee bit of detail muscle over the top. So from viewed from the top, I just want to check that this shoulder narrows here. So nearly it comes out in a diagonal line there, and then goes in there. I'm just pushing that bit around to create the chest. So this should feel fairly flat, but there's two definite muscles there. So I'm just going to work there. So then it's just a matter of doing the same on the other side, just checking that that isn't the right place. I'm just going to pop it on here while I'm working. You see it? Okay, yeah, I can. So I'm just going to push out that shoulder blade, keeping the withers narrow at the top. And I just want the feeling of an angle here. We'll get a straight line there. So what I'll do is just check that those points of the shoulder are in the same place. I'll get that sort of C shape in there. Then just push. So when I'm doing this, it's important that I keep in mind that this, if this is an arrowhead, this is the longer side and this is the shorter side. So to think of the angle on that shoulder. So then when the clay is quite wet, that's probably about enough, quite soft, that's probably enough for today. And that would be as far as we covered on Monday with the class. If you let it dry for a little, like one night with just a cotton cloth over it rather than the plastic bag, then it will be firm enough to work into a wee bit more. But that's a good start for the torso. And just checking from above for symmetry. So then when you have the torso at that stage, then you can pop it aside and we'll actually put it on our wee support. So I'm just taking a wee bit of paper, lining the support, and then we'll pop that on. And then put that aside. And then we will go, I was going to do a separate video, but we'll just march on, I think. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't. No, I'll stop and start another one for the head. Okay, thanks for watching.